This collection started for me like all the collections start, which is I have no idea what I'm doing. I just start writing poems and then they gradually coalesce around certain ideas or themes. And there's something about the fact that now the world feels a more volatile, a more threatened, more vulnerable place than I can ever remember. And politically, ecologically, on so many levels. And that started to creep into the poem. And the more I look back on the poems I was writing, the more this idea of ransom, in all its senses, ransom as in kidnap movies and in the iconography of popular culture and gaming, but also theological and philosophical ideas of what it means to be held to ransom or to pay a ransom. So about halfway through the writing of the poems for this book, there became a more conscious sense of, oh, okay, and I know what this book is wants to be about now, and I was then kind of felt I was working with that idea. I found in recent books I'm more and more drawn to sequences of poems. There are a number of individual poems here, and they sort of form informal sequences without me trying to, because if you're writing poems within a particular period, they tend to kick off each other or against each other, but there's all sorts of connections and threads are set up. But there are some sequences, there are 3 sequences in this book that were very consciously written, knowing that they were going to mean more than one individual poem for me to explore them and expand upon them. Like a lot of poets, I write draft after draft after draft and work and then leave things for a while and abandon them and come back to them and so on. So that sense of quality control, I think, is something that kind of comes with the territory of doing this, of making these things with words. But if you're sort of moving into how do you manage control over the way that people will receive your poems, whether they'll find them sentimental or whether they'll be moved by them or whether they'll be upset by them and so on. That, of course, is really difficult because you know some of the people who might read your poems, but you don't know everybody and you don't know the multiplicity of circumstances in which they're receiving the poem. So inevitably, when something goes out there, there's a sense of risk, I guess, but that's a positive risk as well as a negative risk. You can meet someone at exactly the moment maybe when a poem might connect with them, and that certainly happened to me with other people's poems, including sometimes a poem that's pretty much left me cold before, and then I come back to it in a completely different circumstance in my life and I read it and it fells me, so there's something complex about that relationship. But I think no poet would ever write anything if you became completely fixated with how you calibrate the emotional response to make sure that it hits everybody in the right way. It's an impossible thing to do. So you just, to some extent, you have to become your own kind of barometer of that. And actually, like most people, I have a kind of circle of friends and family and other poets and other people who aren't poets but are very astute readers of poetry. And so there's a group of people who would see these poems before they come together in a book. And people who I trust would say, this one's not right yet. And I think most poets, again, would rely on that. So it's you trust your own judgment, but you also have a kind of community of readers who are close enough to tell it like it is. It's a great privilege to be on the Eliot Prize shortlist. This is a poetry prize that every poet knows about from when they start publishing poems, and it's judged by other poets, which is one of the particularly special things about this prize, and why I think if you do get shortlisted, there's something very powerful about knowing that your fellow poets have sat there and read through all these books, and for whatever reason, yours has come up in the final few. So it feels like a great honor, and I'm very grateful and delighted to be here.